just, you know, as you get older, you don't get healthy as quickly.
I'd like to welcome everybody here today. Thank you for coming. And we're for the regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors for this May 20th, 2014. If you'll stand with me, we'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Supervisor Dela Cruz.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all.
So I may have a motion to acknowledge certificate of posting.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0. And I guess if I can have Marcy meet me at the podium. Actually, may I have a motion to for this proclamation for the Emergency Medical Services Week?
I'll make a motion to proclaim May 18th through 24th, 2014 as Emergency Medical Service Week and recognize individuals for outstanding EMS service as recommended by the EMS agency.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0. Marcy? This is always a great week to be able to just honor those that have given to the community so much. And with that, I'd like to read the proclamation. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of the emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rates of those who experience sudden illness or injuries, and whereas the emergency medical services system consists of emergency physicians, emergency nurses, first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, and others, and whereas the members of the emergency medical services team, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuous education to enhance their life-saving skills, and whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishment of emergency medical services provider by designating Emergency Medical Service Week. Now therefore be it resolved that the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, in recognition of this event, does hereby proclaim the week of May 18th to the 24th, 2014 as Emergency Medical Services Week. Congratulations, Marcy.
Thank you. Good morning, Board. Thank you for this opportunity. These people are very special to me. As you know, I've been a paramedic for a very long time, and I know the kind of work that these people do. And oftentimes it goes without even a thank you. And they're putting their lives on the line, and they're doing everything they can to save the lives of our family and our friends. And it's really important to be able to give them this opportunity to be recognized as heroes. I have a long list of heroes, too, to recognize here. The first call was a baby. Our crew came just in the nick of time and was able to deliver a healthy baby to the family. Fire crews, let's see, Hollister Fire, Dennis McKnight. If you guys all want to just come up and stand as we do this, we'll get all the heroes up in front, get a picture, and then afterwards we're going to go celebrate with a big cake and some coffee and hand out the certificates so that we can make this a little quicker here. So Captain Dennis McKnight, Greg Betancourt, Josh Bezzetta, they must be out saving lives right now. Brianna Lee, likewise. Ninette Duclo, Jennifer Cheney, and dispatchers Melody McDonald and Dave Sumner. Dispatchers are a key piece in our life-saving because they take that call first from the distressed parties. They make sure that the right equipment gets on scene for them and keeps everybody calm and gives them pre-arrival instructions. It's a very hard job, and we thank you guys for being a part of our team. The second call was a major crash. A lot of people were involved in this, and we had multiple engines responded. We had multiple helicopters, multiple dispatchers. It was quite a scene, and everybody responded, did exactly what they were supposed to, and gave everybody the opportunity for survival that we so often get faced with. So we had rescue Leo Alvarez, Mark Aguirre, Mel Nielsen, Ryan O'Connor, Greg Betancourt was on duty again, Norm Fisher, Tim Schneider, John Camera, Earl Amuesa, David Gonzalez, Chief O'Connor, David Lopez. We also had crews from Santa Clara County come in on this call, both from Pacheco Station. And then we had paramedic Mike Badano and Jennifer Guerrero. And awesome. And for the last call, this one was a cardiac arrest victim. Oh, I'm sorry, dispatchers. Getting ahead of myself. We had German Flores, Melanie Sherwood, Tammy Spath. Excellent. And lastly, this call was for a cardiac arrest victim. What we've initiated in San Benito County is what we call pit crew. And just like in NASCAR, we come in and everybody has specific duties that they're supposed to do to save a life. And our crew comes in and they take on their responsibilities, and we have had an incredible number of saves as a result of this new technique. And these people were Charlie Bedolla from Hollister Fire, John Parinello, Mel Nielsen, paramedic Daniel Clampett, EMT Carlos Ramirez, medic Ben Kirkus, and Jen Guerrero. And the dispatcher was Abby Marizetti. Okay. And from what I understand, this patient was admitted to the hospital and was discharged 4 weeks later with minimal deficits. So I just want to thank all of you guys for being our heroes. There's one of our heroes, Daniel. It's definitely more than a job, and these people, our EMS Week theme this year is dedicated for life, and I myself have been dedicated, and I know these individuals are as well. Thank you all.
All right, we'll move on to our public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone to address the board on items of interest not appearing on the agenda. No action may be taken provided by Government Code Section 54054.2. Do we have any speaker cards?
I do. First speaker is Marty Richmond.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Marty Richmond from Hollister. This Monday is Memorial Day, as we will all recognize those who died in the service of the country. I hope today, if you can find the time to close today's meeting in honor of those who did die in the service of their country. And how can we best show our appreciation? Well, those who are gone are gone. We can go down there and make a lot of speeches, and the flags will be there, and the bands will be there, and everybody will be thinking of them. But there's another way we can show our appreciation, and that is to take care of those veterans who are still alive. And it's unfortunate, if you've anyone who's read the newspaper, there was a story in the Los Angeles Times over the last few days that is really, really disturbing. The kind of treatment that this nation is giving the veterans. I have been fortunate enough that my economic situation is such that I have not had to use the VA. I have no personal experience. But I doubt if any of you would wait 18 months to get your x-rays read, or wait a year or two to have someone take a biopsy on your skin only to find out you have cancer. That's the kind of service we are offering our veterans. Get in line, wait a year, wait 2 years, wait 3 years, and I've been here before you previously talking about how long it takes to get a judgment for disability, and I don't have one, so I haven't been through the system. But there are people waiting years to get a judgment for disability for service they gave to this nation, and it is a disgrace. So I hope the board will close in memory of the veterans, and I hope at some future date this board, as a representative of the people of San Benito County, will take it upon themselves to write a letter to the federal government expressing dismay over the way the federal government is treating veterans who need medical care. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Marvin Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. Marvin Jones from Hollister. I'm just going to expand a little bit on what Marty was talking about there, Memorial Day. The first memorial service was shortly after the Civil War, when some slaves went out and honored black soldiers that were killed during the Civil War. Civil War didn't end slavery. It's only a couple of years later, because Delaware, Kentucky, Missouri still had slaves. It wasn't until the passage of the 13th Amendment that slavery was ended. But anyway, the first memorial service was blacks honoring black soldiers. And it was a good event, and it spread on, and now we've got what we have there, and I appreciate Marty's comments there. What I really wanted to talk about was Bureau of Land Management is not the only government agency that's been confiscating property. It was the Forest Service over in New Jersey, New Mexico. That's a big difference. New Mexico, on one of the federal lands that have been grazed for over 50, 60 years that they've been grazing cattle there. So the Forest Service decided that they were going to sequester a chunk of the land, so they built fences around it, and it happened to be the water supply. They fenced off the water supply for the cattle. And it was in Ontario County, New Mexico, where the Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to have the sheriff go open the area. And it was last Friday, the Forest Service and the Department of Justice were still stonewalling. Don't know what's going to happen there. But now they closed off Clear Creek. They closed county roads, not federal property, but county roads. And we just sat there and watched. I can somewhat understand your reluctance to do things when I look at the general plan, because our general plan calls for the county to do some of this sequestering and taking property out of public use there. If you read your general plan in the NCR, the health and safety and cultural resources area. So San Benito County is doing it. Bureau of Land Management is doing it. Forest Service is doing it. Of course, we're familiar with the Department of the Corps of Engineers doing it. They're just running people off the land. They're going to pack us all into cities. Anyway, that's today's version. Thank you.
Next speaker is Bruce Lewis.
Hi, thank you, Chairman and Board. The TOT is a tax on tourism and serves as a source of revenue for the county. It is not a tax on tourism, but a tax strictly on lodging. We in the lodging businesses should pay our fair share, but not the entire share. We do not see any signs in the windows of local county businesses stating for locals only. We've been told that our TOT is lower than other areas, so we should increase to be like them. Remember what we say to our children. If your friends jump off a cliff, would you do the same? Before forming a district, we ask the county supervisors to honestly look at the TOT tax fairly. Supervisor BOS has stated in Business Council luncheons that she wants more tourism. But the county claims 20% of our jail is filled with tourist inmates from outside of our county. I verified the 20%. However, arresting officers do not ask them if they're staying in any of our lodging facilities. I've never been contacted by a guest at Ridgemark for 4 years claiming they missed their reservations because they were in jail. The average length of stay in our county jails is 23 days. That tells us they do not have the money for bail, so we doubt that they have disposable funds for vacationing in our county. So Supervisor Marge wants more tourism, but the county says this means more crime and criminals in our community, and this seems a little bit ridiculous. It is also mentioned that if we form a district, the county would not need to increase the TOT tax. We have never been given a dime in the past, and as a revenue source, you can't say that it will not be an increased tax in the next couple of years. To say that you won't need to increase the TOT tax if we form the district implies you intend to control the spending of these fees, and now we're double taxed. At the first meeting, we were told that the county would collect the fees and return them to us for marketing, with the county receiving an administration fee. Now we've learned that we need your permission to spend these funds if over a certain dollar amount. The county has jurisdiction over the fees, another point of mistrust. Also, there is no guarantee the county would not raise the administration fee for collecting the fees. You have offered to spend $1,500 to bring in a consultant regarding the districting concept. We do not feel you should waste the taxpayers' money to bring in someone because we don't agree with you. We need to talk with the supervisors, not a consultant. Finally, we do not believe tourists come to our county to experience a five-star fine lodging facilities. They do not come to enjoy an unbelievable atmosphere at our facilities and then say, oh, I wonder if they have any events or recreational facilities here. I just happen to have my dirt bike, camping equipment, golf clubs, or horse with me, and I might want to check out the other areas. The district may want to be formed, but without honest discussions with the supervisors, I don't see it going further. Thank you.
Do we have any other speaker cards? Would anyone else like to address the board at this time?
You have item number 1 now. You guys can speak on item number 1.
Did you want to speak on item number 1 and in public comment?
Okay, Richard Betancourt, 4140 Southside Road. I was listening to Marty on the vets. My brother just had open heart surgery, had a valve replaced up at the VA hospital in Palo Alto, and I made quite a few trips up there with him, and I was very impressed with the VA hospital at Palo Alto. Most of the doctors there come from Stanford. So, but then I've also heard that Palo Alto is the Taj Mahal of VA hospitals. So I wanted to clarify that.
Public comment?
Comment and number one.
Okay, because they haven't got to number one yet, so,
I know.
okay, here, you can sit down if you want.
Good morning, board. My name is Keith Retaji. I'm multi-companies. Today is morning for our best Memorial Day. So, and what more Richard said, back answer that it's a terrible thing that my dad died from in my arms. He had cancer. Then my other friend died by his family in their arms at the Palo Alto Vets building. I'm in the hospital over there. But one thing that we do need to do is I'm against both raising tax with the TOT tax. The C's trying to implement, make an excuse that we're going to do it for the, not for the people, but they're going to make some kind of tax to raise our taxes where way they can edge to implement that and make it some kind of excuse about somebody. We're not going to tax from the people. We're going to tax to the motels. For one, there's hardly any motels in the city. And the one they're going to build over there, right there, the Marriott or whatever, when I asked request for them for the where they can build at and more about that part, they said it may not be 2 years from now. City manager over there, our city. One thing we have to be more prepared when we do things. When they do agenda, they're never prepared. So like I missed a meeting, King Park. We need bigger city chambers over there. We know that we have all these people. We just watch what we do. We had extra under budget when do expenditures too. Because on the city expenditures, if you look at my website, because I'm going from here to Ulster, you see my whole platform of our future the city. And we should do better ways when to do things. For number one, we should fix our roads, Council Seaside. Where's our money going at? I ought to know. Because over there, west side over there, see, they work on it. I almost freaking broke my front of my car. Holes and all that. We need to fix the grass whole city. We need to know where's the money at. I ought to know. Thank you. I see you guys are doing a good job too.
Would anyone else like to address this board on item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to department head announcements. Mr. Espinoza?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do have a few announcements this morning. The first one is I had the privilege to attend CSAC last week, along with Supervisor Barrios. A couple of things that came out of that conference was the drought, as well as the trailer bill that is coming to play under Section Code 69927. And this proposed trailer bill is for our court security here. They're right now looking at allocating $1 million for that. Currently, Calaveras and San Bernardino County, our county, would be able to utilize that along with other counties in the near future. I was in communication this morning with our senior legislative analyst, Elizabeth, and she said that that actually there were some concerns about this particular trailer bill, and right now it's at the legislative analyst office, and some of the budget staff actually have some concerns with it. So today they're going to be discussing that at the Senate. Just wanted to make sure that that our board is aware of that, and yesterday they did talk about that at the Assembly. So there'll be more to come. I'll make sure that keep the board informed as well as the public. But if it does pass, there's some good things for us for this next year with regards to staffing at the courthouse.
Yeah.
Supervisor Patello?
Yeah, before you move on to the next item, that was part of what I was a report. We all, I think, got a letter from the rural counties representatives of California supporting the proposed budget of $1 million, and I was curious on the breakdown of that $1 million, if they have that breakdown, and is this just a one-time shot in the arm, or is this going to be something that is to be incorporated into the formula of AB 118? And I had a phone call into our lobbyist who wrote the letter of support for RCRC as far as asking those questions. Maybe you know, Mr. Espinosa, if what the breakdown is and if that's adequate for our increased staffing, because I certainly feel that it's the state's responsibility.
Yeah. Actually, one of the emails that Elizabeth sent to me, basically with the trailer bill, they're establishing a process and statute that will specify the type of information the counties would be required to submit. So basically, what staffing levels are we going to need and what those costs are going to be, and then at that point we'll send that to the DOF, and then the DOF will then say yes or no to that. Again, this will be analyzed year after year, though. So when more counties come on board, I think that dollar figure is going to dwindle for us. So that's a concern that I have, and I expressed my concerns to our legislative analyst this morning about that. I have a meeting with her this afternoon to discuss the breakdown of the money this year as well as the years to come as well, to see if they would be looking at increasing that figure if it does pass.
Okay, so the fight still rages on.
Yes, we have our armor on. The other item that I wanted to share with you was we had a presentation at the CIO-AC meeting, and it was presented by the Director of California Department of Water Resources, Mark Cohen, and he gave us kind of a breakdown of our drought for the state of California. We're in our third year, and expressed that they're really moving forward with allocating funding to address water in California diligently. So that's a good thing. One other thing he mentioned was we were in dire straits prior to the last rains and snow that we received. I would say probably within this last month and a half. So he said with that we'll be able to move forward with this year. We'll be okay this year, but next year we're really we're in dire straits. We could be in dire straits. So that was the presentation. Yeah, those are the two highlights that I had that I wanted to bring to your board. We do have another announcement from our elections office, Joe Paul Gonzalez, our auditor, clerk, recorder, and everything else.
Good morning, Chair, Board of Supervisors. Just wanted to make an announcement that for the upcoming primary election, we're a little bit short on help with regard to election workers, and especially bilingual election workers. While we have enough coverage right now, there's always on election day, there's, somehow things, like a regular job, people call in sick or whatever. So we want to be prepared for those situations. So we're asking that members of the public, if they have an opportunity to step forward and help, if they can help out with this election. There is a stipend involved with being trained for this election. You may not have to work it, but we need to have these alternates trained so that they're ready to, at a moment's notice, get called in to come in and replace someone who did not show up. If you can call the elections office at 636-4016 and ask for Francisco there, Francisco Diaz. He's the main coordinator for that process. We'd sure appreciate it. Again, the number is 636-4016. Thank you.
That is all the department head announcements that we have this morning.
All right, we'll move on to board announcements. Supervisor Patello?
Oh, okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was talk about the RCRC support for the trial court security costs, and I guess that's the first step, and it will be a relief for as we're going forward with our budget for next year. Chairman Munzer and myself, we had a COG meeting last week, and we were able to continue to move out the regional transportation plan for public review, and we'll have a public hearing next month, or at the end of this month, I believe, for that. What also was a concern at the meeting, which I think maybe we should have some sort of discussion at the board level here, is Highway 25. And I think we all recognize as our community continues to grow, we should address the needs on that road one way or another. There are a couple of projects for improvements in the future, a couple of passing lanes that's noted in the regional transportation plan, but whether or not that's adequate, also taking into account our general plan and our land use policies and transportation element, and maybe this board should have a level of input in what we see as the future needs for that road and how it's be paid for. That's the real issue, is how do we pay for that highway. And the other issue that I have that I think we need to talk about in a little bit more detail, as we have worked on the general plan for a number of years, far too many years, there's items that come and go, and one of the items that was a pretty large controversy is what's called a east-west connector, the Shore Road extension. And from talking with our planning staff, that might have been put in by the GPAC back when we had an application for development at the time. And it has remained in the transportation element since. Now that we don't have an application for development out in the north part of the county, perhaps that is a road that should be taken out and or at least considered as whether or not there's a need for it to be identified at this point in time. The significance of that is that that has a lot to do with setting up our impact fees and overall transportation costs for the entire county, and if we want to recognize that at this point in time. But I think it's something that needs to be discussed by the full board and considered at a future date, and given direction. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Barris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to take Marty's comment, and instead of waiting till the end of our meeting, stand up for a moment of silence to honor our veterans for Memorial Day. We will not have another meeting until after Memorial Day, and so if we could do that, Mr. Chair, I would like to encourage that we stand up and honor
Sure,
them.
sure. Everybody would like to stand up? Have a moment of silence to honor our veterans, our servicemen who have given their lives for this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe my mic is disconnected from underneath.
That's kind of a sticky button, I think.
Well, let's see. Oh, there we go. It just turned on. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I, too, as our CAO mentioned, attended the CSAC conference last week, Wednesday and Thursday, and along with that, had the Board of Directors meeting on Thursday afternoon. Our Senate President Pro Tem, Darrell Steinberg, was there and made a full report on what is happening in Sacramento, everything from public safety, healthcare, drought, AB 109, was included in the presentation that he made. His take is that we have to invest back into the unmet needs of the state, and counties included. He talked about that they always push on us the things that they don't want to handle, but they don't give us the money, and it's time that we move forward as far as a state in providing us with the funding, which all of us agreed on, and invest more into mental health resources and reentry programs, because our population is now more infested with criminals as a result of AB 109. So the conversation really centered primarily on public safety and the drought situation. And they encouraged us at the Board of Directors meeting to remain very vigilant as a county and to continue to write letters to the state, to our assemblyman, and to our senator that we need to get the money that is owed to the counties as soon as possible, because there is a bill that will be giving $100 million to counties to pay back the debt. And they asked us, the counties, if any of us still carried on the books what is owed from the state of California. Well, we all chuckled because, you know, who's doing that? Who's expecting money back from the state of California? I told them that we had turned in ours to a collection agency, and we got a giggle out of that. But anyway, so really they want us to remain vigilant, to send letters. We also want not only to encourage the $100 million that is going to come back to the counties, but the AB 109 funding that is actually being reduced. So we want that $87 million back, because we have programs that are working. And if the programs are working and that money's taken away, you know, that defeats the whole purpose. So we want to make sure that we encourage them to continue to give us that funding. And there was one very interesting thing that there's going to be a pilot program and a study to review and consider the viability of a mileage-based user fee. And the reason for that study is because it's determined that there are more electric cars on the road. The electric cars are not paying any of the road taxes that comes through gasoline. So pretty much they're getting a free ride. And so they're saying this study needs to be done because we've got millions more cars on the road. There has been no increase in gas tax for 20 years, which means that that money has 30% less purchasing power. So they're going to do this pilot, and we'll see where that takes us. But I think it's a very interesting concept because electric cars are going to grow in numbers. There's an item in our agenda where we're going to receive, another one ourselves as a county. So that's going to be a very interesting program to watch. And I believe I have one more, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so I want to just summarize by saying that there are 3 requests that are being made by CSEC on behalf of our counties. The first one, as I mentioned, is the $87 million into our general fund for AB 109. The second one is the $100 million to support flexible grant program targeting at reducing recidivism and keeping prison admissions in check. And then the third one is to seek the acceleration of payment to the pre-2004 mandate claims and the county tackle the wall of debt that is owed to the counties with that funding. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Rivas? Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. My wife and I took a very dangerous step a couple of weeks ago, and we went out and bought bicycles to start riding, become more active and bike our rides around the community. And unfortunately, not all the streets or even the roads are biker friendly. And I think that's a relationship that both the county and the city need to work together on developing more, bike paths, walkways, other than vehicles. So I think I can testify to that. Is that we need some work. I'm going to be positive about this and hope that in the future both the city and the county can get together and start developing better transportation modes for bicycle riders and walkers.
All right. I'd like to report out that I was contacted by Congressman Farr's office this past week, and he was due to testify before the House Subcommittee on Public Lands, along with Steve Kordoff, who serves as a BLM Resource Advisory Council. And they are testifying on Congressman Farr Bill H.R. 1776, which will reopen Clear Creek to motorcycle use and will end all claims of the federal government to the county roads if it passes. So I've been actually watching my phone to see if I got an update on the testimony, and I have not. But they are testifying. I'm assuming they've already testified on it. So hopefully we'll hear back good news on that. Also, I want to ask the CAO to agendize for a future date a discussion on the Ridgemark Golf and Country Club complex and the homeowner association. There has been much discussions about the closing of the golf courses up there, what it will do as to affect property values, homeowners, values of their homes, and so we just, and there's a lot of concerns. I've been told people are losing sleep over this. So I think we need to agendize this, talk about the process that applicant would have to go through to go forward with a project like this, and also some of the concerns that would arise. So if
I'll make sure to agendize that.
Thank you, Mr. Espinoza. With that, we'll move on to the consent items. Do we have item 1? Any board member want to pull any items? With that, entertain a motion.
Move to approve all the consent items but number 1.
Is there a second?
Second, I'll abstain on 17.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0 except for 17, which is one abstaining.
Okay.
Thank you, board. I want to say I want to thank the camp board for all the good work, and I want to tell the board that I really I've been watching the board. I feel very comfortable here because for a fact, I've been noticing that you guys are doing good work communicating with the people. And like it's hard for like when you go to see meetings, and like it's hard because when you guys see this, you guys say that they didn't want to talk. When the city does the agenda, they go too fast and not have people be wanting to be input or feedback. Because that's the one to tell the board, I really appreciate being here. I really appreciate watching on TV, Channel 17, and learn off of that. And I re-educate myself how you guys operate. So I want to say for you, Mustard, Del Cruz, and all the board, and all in the finance and Espinosa and all that, you guys. Thank you guys for how you guys are doing our county. And I wish the city to do same thing tactics and how you guys do the means. I really want to tell you guys that. And on the one right here about the petroleum, is that for the farms, or has it take more on the agenda on the one? So I am for it. I am for the on the water to make sure that our farms have enough water between here, the consultant, Jeff, or the water district, to make sure that our farms have enough water so they can do the field. So then the immigrants can pick our vegetables, because you know that if it ain't for them, we wouldn't have food on the table. So that's why I say thank you. You guys have a good weekend.
Okay, is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the board on this item? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve item 1.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. We will move to our first public hearing. Mr. Espinoza?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we're on item number 23 this morning, and this is going to be presented to you by Byron Turner, our interim planning director. And we're going to be requesting a public hearing to review the project Record and Planning Commission Resolution 2014-03 and to consider the proposed zone change 130176 at 720 Briggs Road, Hollister. So again, we have Byron here to discuss this.
Thank you. Yes, this item, the property owner, Richard Hershey, is requesting a zone change from the currently designated agricultural productive district, which is AP, to heavy industrial M2. This is located at 720 Briggs Road, adjacent to the city of Hollister off of Highway 25. While the board is considering the zone change at this time, the whole of the project includes an application for a use permit, the purpose of which would allow the applicant to expand an existing automobile restoration and auto body shop business, thereby allowing the isolated industrial use to legally expand. This will allow them to increase signage, get more buildings, and hire more employees for his business. This business was originally permitted as a rural home enterprise, which is something that a program that the county has, and it's been a successful business, and so the next logical step is to move into the industrial zone. Staff will be bringing the use permit application before the Planning Commission if the zone change application is approved by the board. This project does border the city of Hollister, and it is pre-zoned as industrial by the city of Hollister, so it's consistent with the city as well. I have a location map behind me just showing the general location for the zone change. There's a hand-drawn site plan of the site. This graphic shows that it is within the Hollister planning area and the Hollister land use, which is industrial, and an aerial photo of the property. You can see that it's off of 25 and Briggs. With that, it's staff's recommendation that the Board of Supervisors conduct a public hearing to review the project record and Planning Commission Resolution 2014-03 and to consider the proposed zone change. Number 2, make the CEQA and zone change findings as found in Attachment 1 to your AIT. Number 3, adopt the mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program. And number 4, make a motion to adopt the ordinance to approve zone change 13-176 based on the aforementioned findings and on the conditions of approval found in Exhibit B of the proposed ordinance in your packet. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, are there any questions from the board?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. Back at, in the picture, you said that it really is right next to the city industrial. So would it be on the north side, that city already zoned industrial?
It's pre-zoned industrial, so.
Pre-zoned
Yes,
industrial.
so it's still, there's still county, but it's within the Hollister planning area. If the city, when the city annexes the property, which will happen sometime in the future, I don't know if there's a time frame for it, it is already zoned industrial. So it's consistent with what the city's future plan for the site is.
And can you point out to me where that pre-zoning is? But it would be on the prior picture, because I think that shows a little closer, the one that had the actual picture of the business,
Oh, okay.
that one. Which area is already pre-zoned industrial? Is it?
The property itself.
The property itself, okay, but surrounding it?
And surrounding it.
And surrounding it, okay. I think that's what I wasn't too sure of, if it was just that property or all the way around.
I think the whole, I believe the whole block is pre-zoned.
It's pre-zoned industrial.
yes.
Okay, thank you, Byron. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions of the board?
Mr. Chair, I've talked to Mr. Hershey over, God, almost 10 years on this issue. And he's always expressed a willingness to work with both the city and the county in a good way. However, he just wished that somehow if accommodations would be made to allow him to grow a little bit. Because there's been times where I've gone to his shop and seen that he's been very limited in what he can do. And so what this is doing is just allowing him to, one, give the tools for him to have a potential for business growth, and two, be more in compliance with the city once the city does move into the area. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. With that, I will open up to the public hearing.
And we have a speaker, Richard Hershey.
Just want to thank you all for hearing me, and I want to thank you for all the years you guys have worked with me on different projects and stuff, and I appreciate it, and I really do appreciate it, and this way we can move forward with this project now. And it's been a long time, but people, have been with me and stuff, all my neighbors, and have supported me, so it's been a really good project. So again, I want to thank you guys.
I like that one.
Richard Betancourt, 4140 Southside Road. This should have happened a long time ago. That's my only comment.
Well, you should have done it when you were on the planning commission.
Good comment.
Well, with all due respect, you're too, Anthony.
I can only say that to a cousin of mine.
Marty Richmond from Hollister. I'm always impressed when somebody in the city or county wants to expand their business, and also when they're willing to comply with our complex and often expensive regulations and all the hoops you have to go through to do it. And rather than just doing it and coming in 20 years later and say, I did it 20 years ago, and please forgive me for this, as so often happens. So I want to thank the owner and the operator for doing it the right way, and I appreciate that. And there should be some reward for that, and it seems like this is an appropriate place for this business along a major highway and pre-zoned industrial. Perfect. Thank you. I support it. Thank you.
No more speaker cards? Would anyone else like to address this item before I close the public hearing? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Any additional comments from the board? I think the only comment I have is I understand the applicant residence is on this property.
Yes.
I hope he comes before us in a few years asking us to be able to tear down his residence because he needs to expand again. So I wish him all the luck with this. With that, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we approve per staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes. Those opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay. We'll move on to our next public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we're on item number 24 on our agenda. This particular item is brought to you. We're requesting to hold a public hearing to adopt a resolution to appoint a road commissioner. We recently have a vacancy in the position of road commissioner. We're requesting that Armand Nazimi, the Assistant Director of Public Works, be appointed road commissioner. He is a registered civil engineer, a registered land surveyor. He's also worked in the Public Works Department for 25 years, and as well as the previous road commissioner between May 24th, 2005 through December 1st, 2009. So he's very familiar with this. So we're requesting, again, to hold a public hearing and to adopt a resolution to appoint him.
Are there any questions from the members of the board? Seeing none, Supervisor Rivas?
I have a quick question, and that is, so we approve this action here today, and if once we bring on a full-time a director of the Public Works, will we, so we'll have to do this again, correct?
Yes, most likely. The reason why, Armand was doing this for some time, but all the signatures had to go to Armand and not our past Public Works Director. So we think it's best to have the Public Works Director signing these things, especially some of the claims that we talked about last meeting with gas and fuel, being so expensive. We think it's appropriate that the Public Works Director. So we will.
Okay. With that, I will open up the public hearing. Do we have any speaker cards? Would anyone like to address the board on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution appointing Armand as the Samuel County Road Commissioner.
Second.
I have a first and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Passes 5-0. With that, we'll move on to our regular agenda.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we're on our regular agenda now. We're on item number 25 on our agenda, and this will be coming out of our Ag Commissioner's office. We have Mr. Ron Ross here, and we're requesting that you accept the preliminary engineer's report, to adopt resolution of intent to levy assessments for fiscal year 2014 and 15, and schedule a public hearing for June 17, 2014. So again, we have Ron Ross here.
Good morning, Board. I'd like to take a few minutes and just give you a little background concerning our program that we have. Basically, the program has three functions. There's public education, prevention, and control. The public education is a key component of this because we can't be there for every place and every time. Our biggest public education event is currently the county fair. We have a booth at the fair, and we staff it each night until 10 o'clock, and we reach a good cross portion of the public at the fair, including the adults and children. And we schedule appointments, not schedule appointments, but we take, if someone needs a site visit on their facility or needs mosquito fish, we can take that information from at the time. In years past, we've also had a fair also had a booth at the farmers market. And next Wednesday, we'll be at the farmers market with distributing public information and answering questions from the public. As far as prevention activities, what we do is mainly we do that consists of larvicides. It's a lot cheaper to not wait until you have adult mosquitoes, but actually treat them when they're in the larvae stage. And so our larvicide program consists of various parts. Well, the biggest program is actually we treat storm drains in the county. What happens in the county and the city in San Juan Bautista. And what happens when they construct storm drains is that the water won't, and a lot of them won't actually flush through. There's a lip and a lot of them that will catch the water and it will retain them. And during the summertime, while it doesn't rain, what we have is that people will overwater their lawns or they'll be washing cars. There's usually some water running down the street at one time or another during the summer. And so we'll catch in these storm drains, and so we'll go along and we'll treat each storm drain. We have a slow-release larvicide that we'll just go drive around and we'll just drop it in through the grates. And that suppresses the development of mosquitoes pretty much for the whole summer. In some places we may have to go back and retreat, but generally we can treat now with materials we have, and it takes care of the mosquito population and that may come from the storm drains. Some of also one of the larger contributors to mosquitoes in the town is the green pool situation, and that kind of started when we had all the foreclosures and so forth, and we found through, first we were doing treatments in each pool, but the problem doing insecticide treatments, we have to keep going back. And what we found works really well is just the use of mosquito fish. Some people would try to drain their pools, and we found out that it really isn't the solution. What happens is when they drain their pools, no matter how hard they try, there's always some water left over. And if they do get it drained, it usually fills up with water from maybe a shower or lawns watering or something like that. So the best thing what we found to do is to use mosquito fish. If the person's not going to be able to maintain the pool, or it's the progress of being sold, we'll just put some fish in the pool, and that suppresses the mosquito population, does a really good job. In some places, in some situations, we do treatments, but the use of fish, it's very effective, and it has kept our costs down. What we did last year for the first time was we actually had a company fly over Hollister. They routinely do that in Santa Clara County, so while they're in Gilroy, they came over here and flew over the main part of Hollister. And they can actually tell from the air if a pool is either green or unmaintained versus a regular pool. They'll give us an address, a map, and then we'll contact the homeowner to find out what's going on out there. When we went a little early last year, we found out a lot of people were kind of let their pools go for the wintertime, and they're in the process of getting their pools ready for the summer. So we're going to wait a little bit before we do that flyover. We'll probably do it one more year just to make sure we have a good handle of where the problem pools are. We've noticed a slight decrease in number of pools as property is now moving, but there's just some people that have moved into a house, or for one reason or another, they just don't care about the pool. Some pools have been filled up, but a lot of them are just kind of like sitting there waiting for them to make up their minds what they want to do. Really hasn't been much of a problem because the mosquito fish have done a great job in controlling those mosquitoes in those situations. When we can't control the larvae, then we're stuck with adult mosquitoes. And in that situation, we do have to do fogging. We haven't really done any major fogging since we started the program. There's a couple places in North County where we just can't control the larvae because the large areas are water that we just can't seem to get drained. It's a North County area. There's a lot of high water table, a lot of ditches and so forth. So there's been a few isolated areas where we'll go ahead and we'll fog a group of houses or a short section of street just to get the people some relief up there. But the North County area has been kind of a challenging area because it's not something that there is still, even in a drought year, we got a lot of water up there. We have wells that are artesian, and we just have a high water table, which doesn't contribute. Well, it contributes to the development of mosquitoes. So in those situations, if we can't get the water treated, then we have to resort to fogging. But it's been very limited that we've done that. What the program, as you know, is funded entirely by assessments. Last year, we did raise the rate to $10.90. That was the first time we raised it since 2009. This year we did the engineer's report and determined that we do not need to raise the rate that we, at this rate right here, we'll have enough to run our program, plus to be able to start replacing some of the equipment that we originally bought with grants back in 2005, 2006. So our recommendation is to accept the engineer's report that's in your board packet on a preliminary basis and adopt a resolution of intent to levy for the new assessment for next year. And a public hearing is required to set the assessment, and this hearing is scheduled for June 17th. Are any questions?
Is there any questions of the board?
Yes.
Yeah, so what's the rate that you're proposing for this year?
Yeah, there's no change. Last year was,
No change,
yes,
it'd be $10.90.
$10.90.
Okay. And the other question I have, and you stated that you're buying and replacing some equipment.
Right.
How does our reserves look in this account?
Yeah, we should be fine. We did have a fund balance last year of about $40,000 because we did raise it last year. Now, this upcoming budget that we'll be discussing next month, we do have a purchase of a vehicle. Last time I bought a new vehicle for the program was in 2005, so it's time to probably get a newer vehicle and kind of move that one down a notch to reserve status. So we should have enough. It's not just for vehicles, but we also want to have a fund in case we should have an extraordinary event happen where we have an exotic, say for an instance, an exotic mosquito species get discovered and we have to do an additional work other than our routine work that we've been doing the last few years. So with this $10.90, I think we'll be able to fund a vehicle replacement, our current operations, and we'll have a little bit of money left over to start building so that we have a rainy day fund.
Yeah, I really feel strongly that we have to have a fund in place in case we do find an area that needs to be administered some sort of control measures. And the last question I have, Mr. Chairman, I might have done the math, I'm just doing it right here. From 2014 budget from 2013, there was about a 12% increase in costs, and going from what's being requested for this year and what was projected for this current year is a 20% difference.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if you're looking at the services supplies of the overall budget, but this year we had our service and supplies went way up because we purchased a lot of additional pesticides. We were doing some work in North County where we're treating some pasture land that was semi-wet. It turned out to be very expensive, and the results were sort of mixed. And so I'm not sure. We're probably going to have to rethink our strategy for this summer. So our services supplies did go up last year, and also in this year's budget we do have, or this coming year, which should be 14-15, we do have the expense of replacing a vehicle. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, it's something that we'll probably see again when we do the budget hearings, and as long as you have a handle on the expenses and keeping them in check, and you do a good job of that with the ag department as well. I'm fine with that as long as we're building up a kind of a reserve account in case we need it in the future. Thanks.
Yeah, that's really important. They just recently, this last year, they found Aedes aegypti, which is also known as yellow fever mosquito, and they discovered that in a small area in Palo Alto. Also at the same time found one in Madera and Fresno, right around the border. So this is not a mosquito that's known to occur in the United States, and it's a ferocious day biter, plus it has the capability of transmitting yellow fever. Now, yellow fever virus is in the United States right now, but if it should get introduced, if this Aedes aegypti mosquito should be allowed to get established, then we have some problems. So this year we're going to be doing a little extra surveillance. It takes a different type of trap. We're going to be taking a look just to make sure that, this exotic species doesn't get established. And if we do want to do an aggressive campaign, which is exactly what you're talking about, we have to have money in case something like this, protect public health.
That's right.
Any other questions from the board?
I do,
Brother
Mr. Chair. Ron, there's a county, and I want to say it's LA County, I'm not really sure that I read, I can't find it now, but I was reading it, where they have fines for when you let people know that they've got standing pools or standing containers, because this can happen in a bird bath, where if it's left there long enough, it'll become a breeding place for mosquitoes. So, but they have, it is in the city of LA actually, where they have fines up to $1,000 per day for property owners who don't remove standing water sources. Do we have, I know that we don't have the resources to go out and look for these types of violations, so to speak, but do we have any kind of program that addresses other than pools?
Well, we have, first of all, with standing water and so forth, when we have found standing water, we haven't had any problems with people not draining it or taking care of the measure. Where we had to have situations where people neglected their pools and we found an alternative. At this point, at this place, or at this point in time, we're probably fine. However, there's always a few people that are always not going to, not going to comply, and the fines would be, a real good tool to deal with those measures. We don't have a county ordinance, but we do have 2 state laws. One's in the Health and Safety Code, and one's in the Civil Code that would allow us to levy a fine if need be. It's a pretty cumbersome process where you actually have to have a public hearing. The respondent would have to come in, and they would have to be, show that, why they were not in violation of the ordinance, and they'd be given so many days, and then we'd have to go back and see it's been corrected. So it gets something that go on for maybe for 90 days before, because there's a due process involved. So it's a pretty cumbersome process. It is there. It's probably with our history of the last few years, that's probably sufficient. I don't know if we're going to need to go any further, but it's something that's probably not done very often. The law's on the books. However, like I said, because of the due process involved, it can be a pretty lengthy process.
Okay. Now, we did lose an animal last year, didn't we, to West Nile virus?
Right. At the very end of the season, we had a horse in North County that came down with West Nile virus. And then, unfortunately, the horse had to be put down because of the condition it was in.
Right. Was it determined that it was mosquito-driven, that it was
yes,
as a result?
Yes.
That was pretty frightening to me to just know of one animal. And I know as I read through this report, there were like 1,200 horses that died in the state of Nebraska and someplace else. And that's why we're doing this. We don't want that to happen. So I think we really need to be very vigilant about standing water, and maybe if there's a way to inform people through water bills, through just like we do conserving water, maybe also to be very careful with standing water to not breed the mosquitoes. So if you can do that in the future, I think that would be a good approach.
Yeah. When West Nile virus was first found in California, we did do a few utility flyers through the Sunny Slope Water District in the city of Hollister. It's been a few years, so it's probably time to do that again.
I believe that it is, because it is a frightening thing to know that there is really no way to protect human beings from this virus if they contract the virus. There's really nothing that can be done. So
that's true,
it's very
yes.
serious. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comment from the board? Any member of the public like to address this item?
Yeah, exactly. It's scary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Marvin Jones again. Appreciate that there's no change in the tax rate this year. But under your resolution there that you're going to pass in a few minutes on the be it resolved number 4 was a little ambiguous. It stated in there that you could raise it based on the San Francisco CPI index up to 3% a year, not to exceed 3% a year. And if there are years when the CPI is greater than that, you can bank the excess to use it when years that they're less than that. And then number 4 goes on to say that, well, we've got some in the bank, and if we wanted to, we could raise it 4.1%. Now, what's correct? Is the law that says 3% max, or is it what you want to say? Again, no raise this year. Or is it if you wanted to, you could do it to 4.14%? Now, which is correct, the law or the way you want to do it? Last year you did it the way you wanted to do it and raised it, what was it, 7, 8%? Even though the law says you can only do 3? That number 4 is ambiguous. It needs to be clarified somewhat for next year. This year is fine.
Would anyone else like to address this item from the public? Seeing none? Ron, I know we had this discussion last year. Do you have any comment about the speaker's question about if the resolution sets a maximum of 3%, why are we able to go above that 3%?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Okay, if the ordinance sets a maximum of 3% increase, why are we able to go above the 3% increase in any one year?
Yeah, what the state law on that particular instance says is that we can raise it up whether the consumer price index was last year was something over 2%. It's either the consumer price index or 3%, whichever is less. So if the consumer price index was greater than 3%, we can only raise it 3% in 1 year. However, in those years where we haven't asked for an increase, we can bank that percentage and ask for it later, and that's what we did last year. Because we haven't raised it since 2009 last year, and so we raised it. I don't recall the amount. It was greater than 3%, but we can't. When you take a look at the years we didn't raise it, it was still less than 3% a year.
So the combination of the years that we banked was less than.
Yeah, if we take a look at the total amount of years, let's say we raise it, well, let's say we go 10 years and we don't raise it. Or no, excuse me, let's say we go 5 years, we don't raise it, we raise it 10%, that's 2% a year. So that's less than 3, so that's how you could do that.
Okay. Supervisor Batal?
Yeah, I see both sides of that argument, and I don't disagree with Mr. Jones with the, well, just don't hit me with a 6% or a 7% increase next year just because you didn't increase it this year. But then on the other hand, I feel that we should be responsible for the efficient administration and providing the services, and not tax more than what we really do need to, to keep the public safe with these services. And so, if we don't need, because sometimes if you collect more than what you need, then you have you end up spending more than what you should be, and you lose that efficiency. And I support leaving the rate where it is, as long as it's providing for the service level that we're obligated to the 2 cities and the county that is in the assessment district.
I guess my feeling on this, and this was my position last year, was to leave the maximum at 3%, and then if we needed to raise it again this year, to raise it another 3% or whatever. Now here we did that big jump last year, and now we're not raising it this year, and I have issues with that. If we wanted to rewrite this ordinance, it would have to go before the vote of the district again?
No, if this is allowed under the current ordinance. It's up to the board each year to adopt a resolution saying what the new rate is going to be.
No, I mean, no. If we wanted to rewrite it and actually put in that the maximum that the fee could be raised is 3%, irregardless of how much we did or did not raise it the year before, irregardless of how much we have banked, if we set a true maximum of 3%, so we rewrote the ordinance, would that have to go before the vote of the people?
I'm going to have to defer that one to the council. I guess there's 2 ways to do it. We could actually rewrite it, as you suggest, or just as a board, we just take a stance we will not raise it more than 3%. Perhaps council can talk about the logistics, or what we need to do on that part.
So we looked into this last year when this came before. The board may remember we solicited an opinion from Michael Colantuno, who is authority on this, and he confirmed that under state law, not county ordinance, but under state law, the board is allowed, or the district is allowed to bank those previous years and use them when the board thinks they're applicable. So I'm not sure that we can amend state law here. I'd have to look into it deeper. But I think the safeguard is that the monies are there, or the percentages are there banked if the board chooses it. So the board has a discretion of whether and how much to raise this. And if it doesn't want to raise it above 3%, then the board can make that decision that we're not raising it more than 3% this year. So I don't know that it really needs a change in the law, and we may not be able to do that because it may be state law that we can't change. But the important part is the board has a discretion at what rate to set it at, and if the board's policy is we don't want to raise it more than 3%, then the board can make that decision.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay, I guess I would ask my other board members, is there a consensus that this is an issue that they would like to be looked into? And do we have, County Council, do we have am I able to ask that at this point, just to get a consensus? Okay, is that something that the board would like looked at? Or do you feel comfortable with the way that it is written now?
I'm comfortable with the way it's written, particularly since our commissioner has done such an excellent job of trying to keep the cost down and does not raise it unless we have a plan for the additional monies that are being asked of the property owners. So I'm okay with it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I can see both sides. I can see the advantages and disadvantages. I can see we're placing a placeholder, a bank, for future years. If something comes up, we can always go back to that without initiating another 218. I can see that, and we're hoping that people like you and people like the board today have the sense to say we're not going to go above this percent. We're not going to bank 20% for all this. Sometimes I hope that we were smart enough to understand that. That's not our job to just give an automatic 20% because it's in the bank. But at the same time, yeah, that might actually be a good idea to put some policy in place in which the board every year will have this cap, regardless of what's available in the past. Right now, Ron, you're doing a good job protecting taxpayers' money. The board's doing a good job to ensure that we don't get 100,000 people in our community here up in arms raising up their taxes. So it's working okay right now, but we don't know what the future will allow us, and so it might be a little bit more better to add some teeth to some language that it's only a 3% raise, because if you leave it alone, future board supervisors and your replacement in the future, we just don't know how they're going to react.
I agree with Supervisor Barrios. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Supervisor Barrios, too. I don't
All
see
right,
us
very good.
going.
Very good, all right. Okay, are there any other questions of the board? What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve per staff recommendation, resolution number 2014-47.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Passes 4-1. Okay. We'll move on to the next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we're on item number 26 on our agenda, and this item will be presented to us by our County Assessor, Tom Slavich. You'll be receiving a comprehensive audit of the Assessor's Office performed by the State Board of Equalization. I'd like to first just say a couple of words with regards to this. I want to thank Tom and his staff for working so diligently in addition to their normal duties to get this done. and doing it as well, with this assessment ratio of 99.93. So I think it was a fantastic job in their office, and I just wanted to thank you and your staff publicly for that. Tom?
Thanks, Ray. Yes, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about this report. It's basically, as Ray indicated, it's kind of an audit of our office. Every assessor's office in the state is audited on a 5-year cycle, a survey. There's also another process called sampling, which is a little bit more detailed, more intense, and we were chosen for that as well. And the scientific way of doing it, they put the names of all the county's assessor's offices in a hat, and they draw the names. And we were actually chosen this time and the prior time, so batting 100% there. So anyways, as I mentioned, it's more of an intense process where they look at policies, procedures, actually look at all our assessment valuations. They go out, they have look at different properties. They have access to all our records. We give them copies of whatever they need. They interview employees and go through the whole process. Usually a team of 6 State Board of Equalization auditors and appraisers there. For a 2-month process in the office. And then it continues probably for another 4 to 5 months where they're in contact with us, emails, phone calls, having questions on certain appraisals and asking for more information, more copies of records and so forth. As Ray mentioned, we had 99.93%, which is a really good rating. I think the prior sample we had, survey we had about 99.5%, so it's actually a little bit of an improvement. The report goes on to talk about the effective programs in the assessor's office, areas, recommendations for improvements of the office, and also provides like a 5-year history of assessment data as well. This year we had 6 recommendations for improvements in the office. We implemented 3 of those 6. We're working on the other 3 as time and resources permit. I believe on the last survey we had 9 recommendations, and we implemented about 60% of those recommendations. We're very pleased with the report, and I just want to thank my staff for doing really a great job, and thank them for all their hard work. And so at this time, if you have any questions of me, I'd like to go ahead and ask.
Are there any questions of the board?
Are you trying to lobby for more staff today?
That's another day.
Just a comment, Mr. Chair. I also want to reiterate what our CAO said. As I read through the executive summary, your staff is doing a really good job of making sure that the assessments are done properly. And I appreciate that you concur with a lot of recommendations. I know that a lot of it has to do with time, being short-staffed, and also resources. Money's always an issue. So considering all that, you are open for the recommendations, and you will be putting them in place as you're able to. So I appreciate your open-mindedness about that, because it can only provide better service for our community. So thank you, and thank your staff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Recommendation 3 and 4. Well, 4, they kind of, 4 definitely is talking about decline in value determination. Do they know how the fracking initiative is going to come out already, or what?
No. Yeah. No, that's just a way of determining those values. There's a certain formula that's involved in there, and we've been trying to follow that formula, but
I guess my curiosity is, why do they say for decline in value as opposed to just determining the value? Why do they expect a decline in the value?
They're saying that it may decline in value, not necessarily it will decline in value. It's basically, there's Rule 469. it talks about tracking the base year value of the property. You know, you might have a 1975 base, and we haven't been tracking those bases. So there's different areas that, you know, that are involved in that, and we haven't been really tracking that. So that's something we're going to be working on.
Okay. Okay.
There's not that many properties in this county that, I mean, some of these recommendations only apply to maybe 3 properties in total.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. If there's no other questions or comments from the board, then I'll open up to the public. If anyone from the public like to address this item? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to accept the San Benito County Assessment Practices Survey.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to, I believe, what is our last regular agenda item? Mr. Espinoza?
Second to it.
Sure, this is coming out of the Board of Supervisors' office. This is with regards to a letter of support for Assembly Bill 2703 to increase the amount of state assistance to County Veteran Services Office. So we have representatives from Monterey County. They've been fantastic serving our county here for us. We have George as well as Sherry here, if you guys would like to add any more comments to this particular item. But in essence, we're coming to your board requesting you know, support on for this increase.
Would either one of you like to come up to the podium?
Bear with me, my back went out. I'll move it. Mr. Chair, Supervisors, thank you for supporting us. This bill would provide or continue the funding that you received on a one-time payment for the service office. With that funding, we were able to hire a part-time person for outreach activities. We were able to get equipment up to par so that Sherry can do outreach activities in the community. If the funding is made permanent, we'll be able to maybe maintain that one person in the office and continue to expand in services in San Benito County. I'm looking into possibly putting Sherry out here an additional day because we have a person in the office and we are expanding, and we're looking for your support. Monterey County signed theirs, and with that support for that bill, it would expand service like the young man was talking about. We really need to help the service members that are getting out. I have my Army shirt on. I want to let you know that I retired out the Army May 1st, 33 years combined with active and reserves, and I was at Camp Roberts. We just processed over 500 individuals going to Iraq, not Iraq, but Afghanistan and Cuba. So when they say the war is drawing down, the war, no, they're still sending people. So we really need to get out there in the community, and my service officers are going to get out there into the reserve centers and guard centers also too. And thank you for your support. And she's doing an outstanding job. Hope you all know she got promoted. So more money, more work. Thank you.
And more service.
More service to more veterans. One more comment. Memorial Day is coming up, and we still have to look out after the survivors of those veterans that have fallen. I had the opportunity to go to Fort Hunter-Liggett to a chapel out there where they had Spanish-American War veterans, Civil War veterans, World War II veterans, and current veterans buried in that cemetery. So we have to take care of those that are the survivors of veterans too. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from the board?
A comment, Mr. Chair. On a personal note, I just want to let everybody know that my nephew Anthony, as we meet right now at 10 o'clock, he got on a plane and is headed to Fort Benning, Georgia. And he is a new Army serviceman. As of yesterday, he was sworn in. So.
I'd like to make the comment that it was our CAO, Mr. Espinoza, when he gave the year-end report. He showed a picture of a gentleman who I go to church with. He had gone through our training after losing his job. He went through the training, through the one-stop, got a new job. His son came home from Afghanistan after a debriefing in Texas, I believe, surprised his family in the middle of church service. It was orchestrated through the pastors and through members of the church. And it was just a wonderful event to see his mother screaming and hollering and yelling her head off, running down the aisle to the back of the church to hug him. Unfortunately, the very next day, his older brother was in a horrendous accident out in San Juan Valley. He basically, I have not really heard what happened, but he was in a horrendous accident, broke his pelvis. That day was not expected to live, but he is. He went through a 12-hour surgery at the end of the week, and he's doing very well. But I mean, just the emotional roller coaster for that family of having one son come home on Sunday and then almost losing another son the next day. But yeah, we can never take life for granted and always need to appreciate our veterans as much as we can. With that, what's the pleasure of the board on this item? Oh, I'm sorry. We have another speaker?
Marty Richmond.
You can put a yellow slip on this one. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Marty Richmond from Hollister. It's very rare that somebody calls me a young man anymore. They stop when I hit 70, and I haven't had it happen for a couple of years. I'm in support of this letter, and I'm in support of this bill. There's good news and bad news. The bad news is it's been around since 1998, I think. Another one of these really good intention bills that never kind of gets off the ground. So here we are, 14, 16 years later, but it's back. That's the good news. So I'll give him some criticism. I'll give him some credit. I read it in detail, some of the issues involved. The return to the state on this program is $91 for every dollar they spend. For every dollar they spend going out and finding the veterans who are qualified for federal assistance, they get back approximately $91 the first year alone, not every year. The first year alone, they get back approximately $91 from the federal government in medical care, assistance programs, housing, and all the entitlements that the veterans have earned. That's a hell of a return. $91 for every buck they spend on this program. It's an amazing amount. And again, that's only in year one, and the veterans are typically, depending on what their issue is, if they have a disability or if they've been exposed to Agent Orange, they may get those benefits for life. And the state of California says we get 91 bucks for every dollar we spend the first year alone. And the one word that's in the bill over and over again is they're going to award you the extra funds for innovation, which means we have to be innovative. We cannot just keep running the same old program. We have to go out and find these people where they are. We have to, one of the first questions we should ask everybody processing through every public agency we have is, are you a veteran? And if the answer is yes, are you registered with the Veterans Assistance Officer or likewise? We should do it at the One-Stop Center. We need to do it with the people coordinating medical care at Hazel Hawkins that we have working over there. Every place, even in the nonprofits, the Emmaus House, because as many females have served. My granddaughter, as many of you know, I mention all the time, is a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne, and she's currently serving in Italy. And she served a year in Afghanistan also. So is it your nephew?
My nephew.
If your nephew needs some instructions on how to jump out of an airplane, he can see my granddaughter. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else from the public like to comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve, Mr. Chair, per staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0. We've had our moment of silence. So with that, we'll adjourn to closed session. County Council?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Board of Supervisors will now go into closed session to discuss agenda item number 28 on today's agenda. Agenda item number 28 is to confer with its labor negotiators in closed session. The agency designated representatives are Danya Torres Wong, Ray Espinoza, Joe Paul Gonzalez, Melinda Casillas, Mark Gregerson, and Georgia Cochran. The employing organizations involved are Institutions Association, the Law Enforcement Management Employees Group, SEIU Local 521, the General Unit Employees, SEIU United Long-Term Care Workers Local 6434. The authority to meet can be found in California Government Code Section 54957.6.
Great. Would anyone from the public like to address the board on this item? Seeing none, we'll adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to amend my disclosure to also add Jim Riding-Sword, the Health and Human Services Director. He will be one of the agency designated representatives that will be meeting with the board in closed session today.
So noted.
Adjourned.